On today's program, we're going to dig into the critical role of professional development and training in business success. We all know that as companies grow and evolve, their approach to employee development must adapt to meet market needs and company demands. How are you doing with your professional development program at your company? This topic may help you adjust and pivot as needed to maximize the effectiveness of your team and their future with you. To do this, I'm pleased to welcome frequent guest Chuck Violand to the program. Chuck, always a pleasure.
Jeff, it's always a pleasure being here. Thanks for having me back.
Let's dig into this. Where's that book? Oh, here it is. Forging Dynasty Businesses. I have a copy here.
Looks
We're going to
familiar.
talk about professional development, Chuck. Thinking about that and training. What are your thoughts? How does that change over the years as a company grows and becomes more complex?
Yeah, it does change. Training really, Jeff, has mostly to do with the technical skills to perform a job. Okay, for field workers, this involves the actual services that the company provides or the products that they make. Things like cleaning, drying, plumbing, wiring, roofing. First, it involves understanding fundamentals of how to do that work and then how to do the work more efficiently. Now, think beyond just the field workers, though. Okay, it also includes record keeping, job management, bookkeeping, and selling. Okay, these are all technical skills too. And while the people you hire into those positions may have performed the tasks in their previous jobs, they need to learn how you want them done at your company. So that's where that training comes in. Now, as your company grows and you want to promote people into supervisory or management positions, this is where development comes into play. Development involves both soft skills, communication, empathy, coaching, listening, etc., as well as higher level development of technical skills. Things like progressing from performing a job to supervising other people performing that same job to thinking strategically about how that work contributes to the overall success of the company. So they both play very important roles in your company.
So Chuck, thank you. You say that training employees is the most critical investment you make in business. Do you think companies today are investing as they should? And is there like a budget or dollar amount you would recommend?
Yeah, good question. And Jeff, quite frankly, I'm not sure that it's always been the case in the business world about development, but I do believe that it is now. Innovation and change is happening so fast now that it's faster than it's ever been. Competition is fiercer. Employees and customers have more choices and more opportunities now than they ever have. Technology, good gracious, technology is changing daily. If your people aren't growing to meet these changes, then by default, you're falling behind. People development has become a competitive strategy, an employee retention strategy, even a strategy for increasing sales. As far as the budget is concerned, though, I've seen owners invest up to 10% of their revenue. Now, that's very rare, and I'm not even sure that that was necessary. I find that 2 to 4% of revenue generally is more common.
As a side note, Chuck, I've seen companies bring many employees to trade shows as part of their training. I find that fantastic. I talked to one owner at ISSA show North America a couple weeks ago.
I was just
She,
there.
yeah, and she brought 30 people, 30 staffers. Like,
Whoa.
yeah.
But I remember when I had my cleaning business, restoration business, we would take folks
Hmm.
to UCCI show. Oh yeah.
Right. Yeah, it's good. It's good. It's good networking. It's good for them to see the industry from other perspectives. But my next thought along that line, Chuck, is I've heard some say as well, I have a new technician. I'm not going to send them to a certification seminar until I'm sure they're staying with me.
Yep.
Wow. What do you think about that? Does that sound logical to you?
Wow. Jeff, my answer to that is it good or bad? It's sort of. Obviously, it doesn't make any sense to invest training dollars in someone that you don't think is going to stick around long enough to get a return on that investment. Okay, that's one of the reasons, quite frankly, that you and I have discussed in our previous videos about taking the time to make sure you make the right hire in the first place. But we both know that no hiring system is foolproof, and sometimes marginal employees make it through. So The initial in-house training that you offer your people really is a relatively low cost investment in your people, especially when you compare it to the expense of having them do the job wrong. So it sure doesn't make any sense to skimp on that training. Now, it goes deeper than that, though, as you might imagine. There's something interesting that happens in that initial training phase. Not only does the trainee learn how to perform the job that they've been hired to do, but you also have a chance, a front row seat, to learn about the person you hired and whether or not you think there's someone that has potential or that you even want to hold on to. This can help you decide just how quickly you want to move them along with the training. Are they showing an eagerness to learn? Are they showing an eagerness to grow with the company? This can help you make the decision about just how fast and how much you want to invest in their training.
Well, Chuck, I agree with that. At least you do training, whether it's in-house or not, with your team. But you're right, hiring the right person, investing, it's important to be smart about that. I do remember a class I taught, Chuck, IICRC carpet cleaning class.
Yeah.
Three employees came from the same company. The owner, this is true. The owner was going to lay off one employee, wasn't sure which. He said, whichever gets the worst grade on the exam is gone.
He told them that?
He told them that they came to class knowing that. And I'm not going to say who it is, where it was at, but
That's just wrong.
it was wrong. And those three drew closer together.
Yeah,
Instead of being competitive, they were all in the same boat and they were pulling for each other in a way. I don't know whatever happened. I don't grade those exams, but training, you have to be smart when you do
yeah,
it and not hold it over your people's heads. So thought I'd add that. That's just something that came to mind as you were talking about
it's
making sure
crazy.
your people are trained.
That's crazy.
I guess the next point I want to talk about is your 20 components for effective training. Now, we can't talk about all 20, but thinking about a few favorites you have that others might embrace, can you share that with us?
In general, I would look at what are referred to as soft skills, and that list is really mainly made up of the soft skills. And the reason I would suggest these is for the reason that you suggest, Jeff. They're frequently overlooked or they're just not valued as much as technical skills. Let's look at conflict resolution, which is one of them. Let's look at that as an example. Many people really never learn how to resolve conflict in a productive way in their personal lives, much less at work. So they internalize their disagreements, their anger, as they verbalize them through sarcasm or cynicism, but nothing gets resolved. In the workplace, people will always be heard, and they're either heard through their words or through their actions. It's always best to hear them through constructive conversations rather than through destructive actions. Jeff, this leads right to another soft skill, communication. Now, one would think that with all of the communication devices that we have at our disposal, that we would have gotten better at this as a society. I just don't think that we have. In fact, in an internal survey that we do here with our folks at Violand Management every year, communication continues to show up as something that we need to continue to get better at all the time. So when you consider that communication is really the most basic form of work in any business, it certainly deserves to be at the top of everybody's list as far as training and development goes.
So, Chuck, how do you identify an employee to focus on for an individual development plan?
Jeff, in my experience, and the counsel I give my clients when I was working with them, is take a look at what you're getting from that employee. Do they show an interest in learning? Are they as interested in their own development as you are in developing them? Because really, it's a two-way street. You can't just keep force feeding it and expect them to pick it up. So I always look for somebody, A, who's interested in learning. I also look for somebody who shares the same values that we share as an organization. Because if they don't have both of those things, no training and development is going to work out long term, nor is promoting somebody into a position of responsibility going to work out long term. It just doesn't do it.
Chuck, there's a term in the industry now that really wasn't around when I was younger, mentoring.
Hmm.
It's all about mentoring. Can you talk about that? We hear how important it is. What does it really look like to you, and what types of mentoring models should be considered?
You're right. It is more prevalent now than it has been than it was in the past. Jeff, in the book, I talk about four different forms of mentoring, four different models, I guess, of mentoring: one-on-one mentoring, group mentoring, resource-based mentoring, and executive mentoring. I think the two that we're most familiar with and that I see most often is one-on-one mentoring and then also executive mentoring. So let me just talk about those. Okay. The most common ones, again, that I see are one-on-one, where you have a seasoned employee assigned as a mentor to a new employee, somebody new that you're onboarding, to help them navigate the ins and outs of the company, its culture, its norms, the things that aren't usually covered in an onboarding or in initial training. The other is executive mentoring. And in a small business, this almost always involves the owner or executive helping to develop the next level of management or even a successor, if that's the case. In reality, this is one of the roles of every CEO or small business owner to develop that next level of management. And it involves everything from how that owner interacts with their employees and customers to how they behave on and off the job, even to the disciplines that they bring to their jobs. It's a lot of work, Jeff. And I'll tell you what, it starts the day that you hire your first employee.
So a lot of hard work, as you mentioned, Chuck, but it does pay off in the long
It
run.
does pay off.
Mhm.
Absolutely.
But to prove it, talk about tracking all this. How does the company know it's going in the right direction? Any metrics to observe?
Yeah, I mean, an easy one really is employee longevity. And it's an easy metric to measure. Are people staying with you longer? Another easy metric would be bottom line profitability. Quite frankly, better trained, longer tenured employees produce more and better work more profitably than workers who are new to their jobs. But Jeff, there's an intangible metric that's very real and you can feel it. And that's the fun and satisfaction of working, not just you, but the entire team, of working with an experienced team that shares your values and a dedication to the success of the company. And in my experience, that one's invaluable.
Chuck, this has been a great conversation on this chapter. Any final words of advice to those watching?
Yeah, actually, I do. At the turn of the century, John Wanamaker, who was the founder of Wanamaker Department Store in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, is credited with saying, "Half the money I spend on advertising is wasted. The trouble is, I don't know which half." And I think a similar comment can be said about our efforts at employee development. We know we need to do it. We just don't know how to go about doing it. And we struggle with really being able to measure or to see improvement, especially quickly like that. So, look, if you're not doing any employee development, my advice is to start small and focus on fundamentals, focus on the basics. You can always increase your time and your budget later on. Now, if you're already doing some training and development, then I would suggest that you not try to do everything yourself. There are some great resources for training and development that you can find online. A couple that we recommend and that I'm personally familiar with to our clients are Reach Drawing Academy and SuperTech University. Both of these are great organizations and are great value for what you're trying to accomplish.
Chuck, great discussion on chapter 11 of your book. I'm looking forward, especially to the next one, Purposefulness of Employment. What a
That's a good
topic.
one. That's a good one.
I'll see you then.
All right, Jeff. Thanks so much.